I'm Tim Kittro, and here to bring home the bacon are Big Ryan the Fat Guy.
The non sequiturs are so dumb when I know they're coming. What's up, YouTube? It's the NFL picks against the spread for Week 13. Fat Guy, we are 86, 87, and 6. 0.3% below 50%. Quite a bit below the juice, which is not good. But in total, 51.2. We are essentially pushing even at minus 105. On to the Thursday night games. Fat Guy, Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots. Patriots plus 4.5 points. Underdogs at home. 30% of early bettors on the Pats. Fat Guy, who you got?
Kind of like the same old story. Like, I say this every week, but I believe it more and more and more. I had this argument with a friend during the Philadelphia game. I like Philadelphia more than Buffalo and Kansas City because I find that more conducive to winning. But as far as covering spreads go, I think Buffalo and Kansas City were proficient at that. Winning games, I don't think so. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of unnecessary aggression from both teams. So that's why I just don't mind laying points with Buffalo. Would never, 8 years ago, I would have been like, really? You're going to do that? Divisional game? It's divisional game is baked into the line. Any stat you can think of is baked into the line. I have to choose between the two, and like I say, it's just a contest pick, but I think Buffalo is more conducive to covering, and I don't think that's baked in the line. I think that it is asymmetrical information. Not everybody is sharing that view, and I don't think that it's in there yet, because especially because the lines haven't completely decoupled the win probability the money line and the spread. They still seem to be in a linear lockstep fashion, even for Buffalo. There are some slight differences I'm finding, but very few. And it's not enough to convince me that it's baked in the line. So we're going to take Buffalo. We're going to lay you the 4.5 points. It's just a contest pick. That being said, I kind of it's like a weird thing. In real life, Patriots money line doesn't seem that unreasonable at me at the current price. So I'm not endorsing that at all, and I don't want to say a number because then someone will anchor to that number, and then they'll, perhaps bet it because I'm really not that confident. But I am looking at it, so we're gonna take the Buffalo Bills in a contest pick minus 4.5.
Fat Guy, next up we have the Tennessee Titans traveling to Philly to take on the Eagles, who are 5.5 point favorites at home. Only 16% of early bettors are on the Philadelphia Eagles. Fat Guy, who you got?
Well, we're going to agree with the masses and take the Tennessee Titans. We're going to take the 5.5 points. In real life, I'm not too privy to it, or too kind on it. Let's say I think this is probably about right. 6 is kind of a key number here too. 6.5, I would take the Titans here. I think there's reason to believe that would probably be a good tipping point. So if you could get that in real life, I think that as long as you're not paying, if you're paying alt line prices minus 120 or something, it'd probably be a little bit higher, like minus 124 would be my guess at this point in time. I don't have it in front of me, but don't pay that kind of price. But if you got it at regular juice, I would highly recommend taking it. Not that I think it's available at this moment, but I do like, for a contest pick, I'm sorry to say that, I got to be honest, is Tennessee plus 5.5. This is one of those things too, is like I said, Philadelphia money line seems like that does seem reasonable. I think they're more likely to win the game than a 5.5 point favorite would. This is one of those things where it's a complete opposite. I'm glad these games are back to back to kind of highlight what I'm talking about. I think Philly's much more likely to win as a 5.5 point favorite than Buffalo is, whereas Buffalo's more likely to cover the spread just because of the coaching choices. For instance, here's a good example. Philadelphia, if you watch the game on Monday, or is it Sunday night? Oh, it is Monday. So Sunday night. Well, at short yardage, they hurry up, took the clock down, and then did a sneak how many times on 4th and short? And that, just think about it. That's going to take all this extra time off the clock. If it doesn't work, you're less likely to win. If it does work, you're much more likely to win. But that gamble is just such a high probability for them. And they also close out a game. They're not going to score with one, say there's 3.5 minutes left. They're not going to push the pace to try and score a touchdown like Buffalo and Kansas City seem to. So like they can close the game out. They can go 60 yards and just kneel it out at the 10. So like I said, I think like Philadelphia as a money line is much more likely to win than the standard 5.5 point favorite. And again, that's an opinion. I don't have it backed by hard data yet. It's hard to confirm any of these ideas. Really is. That's why probability is such a different such a fascinating animal. So we're gonna go with the contest. We're gonna go with the Tennessee Titans. I really do want to watch this game though. I think this is a battle of two extremely good coaches in the NFL, which have feels very rare when you watch Denver. Does feel very rare.
Tennessee is becoming the 5-star beauties, I guess you can call it, as the season continues. Green Bay at Chicago. Chicago plus 2.5. 34% of early bettors are on the Bears as 2.5-point dogs at home. Fat guy, who you got?
We're gonna take Green Bay. We're gonna lay the 2.5, and then this is one of those weird juxtapositions. Like Jordan Love looked really good, and I'm not one to speculate on attitude. Like I heard probably one of the most ridiculous things ever. I heard what's the guy with Shannon Sharp, the talk radio guy?
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know his name. But continue.
Yeah,
everyone knows who it is.
Yeah, the man who dare not be named. He says that certain players want it more in a game. I don't really believe that. I don't think body language is a good indicator too. It's like, you really want to tell me that Jay Cutler didn't want to win a playoff game? Like, you know what I mean? It's just some people look, it looks can be deceiving. That being said, does Aaron Rodgers kind of look dejected during the game? Sure, but that doesn't mean, he doesn't have a fire and they're trying to win. Like they all are, But that being said, Jordan Love looked really fantastic, and I know there's a drop off, and I like this number under the proviso that Aaron Rodgers is starting, and there is some dubious Chicago quarterback play on the rise. Oh, and there was something interesting. I didn't want to before I confirm this. Chicago, they put out the Nathan Peterman might be starting. I wonder what kind of smoke and bluster that was, because it was a big fake out, and I think it did have a market impact, Big Rye, because the Jets line temporarily for 30 minutes before the game went to 7.5, like pretty fast too. And I wonder if that is they must be acting on the team's news that Nathan Peterman was starting. And I guess what's the real difference between Nathan Peterman and Trevor Siemian? And it probably isn't much. But I guess people in their brains, they go, well, Nathan Peterman had one of the most horrific games ever. Therefore, he's the worst player ever. Like, yeah, if that was the case, why would he even be in the league? So I find all of that interesting. Number one, that smoke screen about Nathan Peterman came out for what purpose? Why? Or maybe it was legitimate. Number two, why are people so eager to bet? And maybe I'm just off. Like, is the gap between Peterman and Siemian really a 0.5 point between 7 and 7.5 against the New York Jets in that type? I don't know. That being said, contest pick, if I could get 2.5, I'm probably gonna take it in real life, just because if I get Aaron Rodgers versus potentially a backup or a hurt Justin Fields, I fully believe Justin Fields is going to play, but not 100% Justin Fields does tilt the favor in considerably, I think, in Green Bay. And laying 2.5 on the road does seem to be like a nice number. So I will consider getting that in real life if I'm able to. So contest pick for now, eyes peeled in real life, Green Bay minus 2.5.
Fat guy, on to the next one. Jacksonville at Detroit. Detroit 1-point favorites at home. 72% of early bettors on the Detroit Lions. Fat guy, I know this is one that, looking at it before the video, you couldn't even believe your eyes when you saw this.
No, I couldn't. It's it just seems weird. Like, why is Jacksonville? Why are they dogs here? It does seem weird, but that's where we're at here. And you're gonna say, well, obviously you're gonna take Jacksonville. I think I'm gonna take Detroit here. I think I'm gonna lay the point. I think I'm just gonna be interested in how this game unfolds. It's one of those things where we used to. Okay, I'll give you an example to the audience. Me and Big Rye used to model the NFL. It was possible. I'm not sure our model worked, but I think that might have been more happenstance than actual usefulness of it. But that being said, we did have the Houston Texans one year in a game where we had them as a 13-point favorite, and they were a 3-point favorite against the LA Chargers in the opening game. And I don't know if I think they pushed on that. I think they won in overtime. This was like 11, 12 years ago. That being said, when you're that off in your head, it's usually just better to reevaluate and readjust, retinker, because
Definitely.
the market is never that off. It just isn't. We can laugh, you and I now, because it's funny, but we were thinking about betting like a ridiculous amount. We also didn't understand bankroll management back then, but it, it's very easy to get caught in your own thoughts about a game. Oh, X team has to kill this team for Y reason. That Y reason is already into the line. I don't understand why Jacksonville is this much of a dog, and I do this. Gambling is my income. For lack of a better term. I don't necessarily bet very much NFL in terms of closing lines or anything outside of really opening lines and some propositions, but and some other things. I can't get into all of it, but that being said, when you're that off, it's better to readjust, and I think that's what I'm going to do. And I do want to watch this game too, just out of curiosity. So it's some of these games are hard to watch for entertainment, but this one I am interested in purely as a fan. So we're going to take Detroit and we're going to recalibrate Detroit -1 contest pick.
Honestly, all these games have been 5-star entertainment. I'm actually looking forward to a lot of these games, especially that one, Jacksonville at Detroit. Next up, Cleveland at Houston, a game that I am not interested in at all. Houston +7 at home, 27% of early bettors on the Texans. Fat Guy, who you got?
We're going to take Cleveland. I think this one has closing line value. I think you should move on this. Cleveland -7 is a good number. One of those things, though, it is harder to lay more points with Cleveland. They feel like a bad Philadelphia. Is that a way of putting it?
That's a great way of putting it.
They have good coaching. They're not actually a bad team. And Cleveland with Deshaun Watson and I think a little bit more time is actually in the Philadelphia realm. I know that sounds crazy to say, but like a tier or two below, but still like a low end contender. I really do believe that. Some of Cleveland's roster isn't that bad, but we're not going to get into handicapping. What we are going to get is Deshaun Watson, ironically coming back to play his old team in his first game in, what is it, a year and a half?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So I think this number, I think this number should be -9.5. And I don't think that I just went on a rant about the market being off. Well, this is an untouched market. Like, this is brand new. This is a quarterback who hasn't played in a long time, and I'm willing to bet that he is, like Cleveland winning by 10. Like, Houston is the worst team in the league. I think we can confidently say that. Cleveland winning by 10 isn't that like out of the realm, even with a team that is able to control the clock properly. But they are going to put up points. It's more than likely that I think they cover this 7-point spread. 7-point spread. I think this number should be 9.5. I do like the Cleveland Browns, and that's weird. It's weird to lay a touchdown on the road with the Browns. It just feels strange. So I think there's going to be closing line value. I do like the Cleveland Browns, and let's go Cleveland.
On to the next game, which is another 5-star entertainment game between the New York Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings 3-point favorites at home, 67% of early bettors on the Vikings. Fat Guy, who you got?
We're going to take the New York Jets. I mean, it's not this one is about right. It's football betting is incredibly difficult to get right. And there's no really getting right. Like, just because you bet a team and they lose doesn't mean you had the wrong side. Like, the probabilities are in play. Like, teams do get blown out that really were 9.5-point favorites. That was one of my favorite things. That the public, I feel like, doesn't understand probabilities. Was particularly the U.S. presidential I'm really losing it today. The U.S. presidential election between Trump and Clinton. I thought it was very interesting that people would highlight that Trump won as an underdog, and in my head, I'm like, even if it's 1 in 100, like, it's 1 in 100 chance that it snows, and it snows. That doesn't mean that probability was off. You know what I mean? That was just, it could have been very accurate, but the result can come out that does, the unlikely result can happen. Where am I going with this? I'm going with this that this is difficult, but the priors are kind of set. Like you're not going to see very much discrepancy in these lines from the reality on average, especially like the market's very sharp. The NFL market's really sharp to begin with, but at this, we're at week 13. You're pretty safe to know like what every team is and how they function. You could make a case that the Jets are perhaps a little bit better under Mike White, and that's maybe why I have a lean towards that, purely in a contest variation, because there isn't a lot of priors set with Mike White as quarterback. And then or you could also argue that this number 3 is low. It's not 3.5 because people are they're overvaluing the performance against the Chicago Bears and perhaps the Mike White survivor killer win over Cincinnati as 7-point dogs last year. So there's all those types of things at play. Contest pick Jets +3.
Next up, another 5-star entertainment game between the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, who are 1.5-point favorites at home. And this is one of those 50-50 betting markets. So not much to pull from the market, fat guy. Who you got?
Oh, from which side's betting? I mean, that's become a lot more dubious as the years have gone on. We're taking Atlanta, but the only issue is like I have the game right on. It's right on this third screen over here. And Pittsburgh is winning. So like in week 13, like I said, it'll be less influencing on the line, but I think this might give Pittsburgh a bump if they do pull off a blowout. So we're still good. We have it written down. We still had Atlanta, and I chose Atlanta before the game started. So you got to stick to your guns. But I'm wondering if this doesn't flip. I don't see how this could possibly go to, other than an injury, -2.5 each way. And those you have a lot of line mobility between -2.5 and +2.5, just because games don't end by 1 or 2 very often. I saw someone in the comment section rag on me for asking, testing the metal of the number 9, and then providing an example of one team winning by 9. That's not good. One frequentist example of someone winning by 9. It's just not very often. And point in case, it was the least landed on number below 10 from according to Big Rye, below 10.5. So this is one of those scenarios too where like the points matter less. This is probably going to be a contest pick. In real life, if it got to like Steelers +2.5, I would consider the linear money line, but not at close. So this is a contest pick. It's going to be Atlanta. It's going to be -1.5.
Less than 2.5% of the time have teams won by exactly 9 over the last 733 games. You compare that to 3. 3 is above 15%. So it just shows you that it is.
I was right.
5 times more likely.
Right. Yes.
To be, well, even more. It's like 7.5. But either way,
not good at math. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, on to the next one. Denver at Baltimore. Baltimore -8.5. 68% of early bettors are on the Ravens. Fat guy, who you got?
We're going to plug our nose. We're going to take Denver. You know what? It's hard to back this team. It really, really, really is. It's one of the worst coach teams.
3-8 against the spread.
Okay, Big Rye loves to use against the spread as a metric to judge your coaching job, and it does make sense because think about it. The spread is the market's expectation, and the further you derive from that is because the market is more in tune with the rosters and the capability of the players, especially when you have a new coach. It's a pretty good argument. I have to give it to him. It's very simple. It's very simple, but it's an easy first glance at the prowess of a coach, generally speaking. I mean, a lot can happen in 11 results, but like this guy is bad. And then I almost wonder too when I take him, like, because on paper this should be what, Baltimore -3.5. Like really, if you were looking at the start of the year, that like doesn't that seem this seems like Baltimore 3, like before Nathaniel Hackett gets hired. or before the preseason, this seems like a Baltimore 3.
Anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5, and
It's in there.
That's the spread that you're gonna get from all
Yeah,
the
this
different
number.
books for this game.
Yeah, and probably too,
preseason.
and someone could see like a look ahead line at the start of the year if you're able to get on like one of those funky books that offered it. But 8.5 is just an enormous number. And then I could also make the argument too, what's baked in the line and what isn't is is the ineptitude of his coaching. Am I still undervaluing it? Like 8.5 is just, this seems like an enormous number for the Denver Broncos, but the effect of a coach is far reaching. And is Nathaniel Hackett, is that have the numbers plunged far enough? Also too, what's the probability he gets fired at the end of the year? Like if it's not like minus 500, there's something wrong in the organization. So we're gonna take 8.5. We're gonna take Denver, and let's hope I'm not. I'm actually giving him too much credit here by taking maybe 8.5, as this has been a really, really, really bad performance. Hugh Jackson, man, you might get to wipe your name off the plaque. You know, like it's really some redemption going on here in Denver.
It's bad, but it's not that bad. Next up, on to the Washington at New York Giants. 5-star entertainment. Giants plus 2.5 at home, 50-50. Betting split. Fat guy, who you got?
This is kind of like the Atlanta game. Like, this has got to be right on there. And if it goes to Commanders -3, I'd be very surprised. I mean, it is possible. We're early in the market. I kind of like the dog, whoever it is, and more on the money line. One thing is I used to really hammer that home, like, oh, if it's plus 2.5, just take the money line. The books have changed their probabilities from 10 years ago. They are way more in tune with the spreads between 2.5 and -2.5. So it kind of doesn't matter. It'll line up just the same way over if you were to simulate the game 1,000 times. We're going to take the Giants. This is purely a contest pick. And in real life, this can't be a bad game to watch. You know, I like Taylor Heineke. Never got the credit due, and the guy plays well. Like this, he's a competent quarterback. Is he above average? No, but you got to give some credit. Like there's a little moxie here. So I kind of like the Commanders, even though their name is the worst in their history. So we're gonna take the New York Giants. It's purely a contest pick.
Fat guy, next up, the Miami Dolphins at the San Francisco 49ers. Another 5-star entertainment game for me. San Fran -3.5 at home. Only 8% of early bettors on San Fran, surprisingly. Fat guy, who you got?
Well, they probably like the hook here, and I can see why. The only weird thing about this hook is, this game could be very high scoring. I feel like the total I think is reasonable too. I think it's in the high 40s. I can't remember them all anymore. I don't have it. I lost the memory. Maybe 46. I'm 34. Yeah. I thought it was 46, 47, 48. Either way, I think this game has a potential for higher scoring. Like if you were to distribute it, I don't know if it's a linear mountain. Like I think there could put, like, Miami scores points. They really do. But then I guess you're going to do, fire against ice, Miami's offense against San Francisco's defense. But these are two, like, San Francisco's maybe the 4th best team in the NFL. Miami is surprisingly good, I think we can fairly say. I think the hook, though, is everything here, and I think that's the reason 92% of people have bet on it. I do like the Miami Dolphins. I do like the 3.5 points, and I'm kind of curious from a X's and O's standpoint how the Demico Ryans defense. This sounds like a sports show when I talk like that. I don't like it, but I am actually curious. That kind of stuff, like how the matchups and the X's and O's work. I have a fans level knowledge, I guess you could say. I never played football. So I do like it. Like, I do like that part of it. Whereas, like, the betting stuff, it's just what's a good number, what's a bad number, and that's how I look at it, and it's worked out for me. So we're going to take in a contest pick, and possibly in real life, Miami plus 3.5, and I think it'll close San Fran -3. That would be my guess.
I like that guess. On to the next game. Seattle at the LA Rams. Rams +8 at home. 19% of early bettors are on the Rams. Fat guy, who would have thought that preseason line would have had Seattle -8 against the Rams, albeit there is injuries involved, but Seattle has just been the better team all year, even with Stafford playing for the Rams.
Okay, I have the weirdest, the weirdest question to pose our audience. Is Geno Smith the best active quarterback in the division? I mean, what is Bryce Perkins, um,
Kyler
Murray,
Murray, Jimmy Garoppolo.
and Jimmy Garoppolo? I actually think he is. If I had to pick a guy out of those four, I'm going Geno Smith right now. Like, you can say what you want. That guy can ball right now, and he just did, and he's playing good football. There's just no way around it. And the Rams, I think Aaron Donald is hurt as well, so that can't help your win probability. That is, oh man, how far can you slide? This is like a monumental disaster of a season for the LA Rams, considering how high expectations were coming off the victory. So we're gonna lay the 8 here with Seattle. I honestly think this could close at -9.5, and I think there's closing line value on Seattle. And here's another thing: when I always talk about uh, uh, covering spreads versus winning games, Seattle's a team that covers spreads as well. Like, the coaching level, I don't think is that high when it comes to play selection closing out a game. You know, it's kind of like that argument. Oh, he said they're not winning efficiently. They won by 14 the last few games. It's my point. They scored needlessly and quickly. Like the game against Arizona, again, I'll highlight, is there's 3.5 minutes left. They're up by a field goal or a touchdown, and they score before the 2-minute warning. That's not like good. That's not, yeah, you're going to win all the time. But if you want anecdotal evidence, let's look at the Browns Jets game. That's, you know, you go from 100% if you run the clock out to high 90s, and that does matter, and it will represent itself. You don't have to look from the Browns game against the Jets game this season. Pick out one disaster Browns game every year, probably the last 10 years. You're going to find one a year every single year. So it does matter, giving up that few percentage points. But that being said, it does lend itself to the Seahawks scoring more, because they're less likely to run the clock out, and they're more likely to try and put points on the board. That lends itself to possibly a decoupling here. I think they're more likely to lose this game than they are than the linear matching money line for -8. I don't mind laying 8 points on the road on the Seattle Seahawks against the Los Angeles Rams. Wow, what a weird turn of events.
I'm just pulling up NEA. Anybody who's played significant amount of time this year, it's going Tua first, Patrick Mahomes second, Jimmy Garoppolo surprisingly third, Jalen Hurts fourth, Geno Smith fifth. So it just shows you how good the quarterback play has been, at least for those 5. On to the next game, Fat Guy. LA Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 2.5-point dogs at home. 30% of early bettors are on Derek Carr and the Raiders. Fat Guy, who you got?
We're going to take the Raiders here. There's actually some good matchups here, Big Rye. Like, there's some
there's some very, very good games this week.
This is
going to be a great week.
And the Chargers might have won in, like, that's pretty exciting fashion here. I had big money on the Arizona Cardinals plus 4.5. So finding out that the Chargers were going for it on that last second touchdown was music to my ears in any way. It couldn't have gone any better. And as my dad says, he goes, you can't fit any more horseshoes up there. And, you know, hopefully he hasn't looked. So, but that being said, we're going to take the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to take the 2.5 points. I don't have any insight or ideas in terms of closing line value. This is purely a contest pick, but this is a game that is worth watching. There are a lot of things worth watching. There's entertainment value. The other thing too is I know I rag on the Chiefs and the Bills all the time. It's because they just nonstop score. Both these teams have something to offer at all 3 facets of football. I like well-rounded teams, offense, defense, special teams, and both teams are interesting at a minimum in all 3 facets. I like it. I like it. They're reasonable, and there's a star too. Like, even though the Raiders D isn't necessarily good, Max Crosby makes things happen. And from a viewer standpoint, That's fun. You like that. You like it when a defense isn't just like completely zero and hopeless because they have no pass rush. On the other side of the ball, they have Khalil Mack returning to face his old team, the his old draft team that drafted him, the Raiders. That's a guy that makes things happen. It's fun. They got a lot more than that. They got a lot more firepower on defense. The Chargers do. But I mean, this is an interesting game, and I just want to see it from a fan perspective. So contest pick, give me the Raiders.
Next up, Fat Guy, Kansas City Chiefs at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals plus 2.5 at home. 66% of early bettors are on Cincinnati. Fat Guy, who you got?
I'm gonna take the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm more inclined to take them Cincinnati money line. This is one of those things where I don't get to do the decoupling speech, which has been the theme, is because this is 2.5. It's not this like we're talking like even if I was right, this couldn't be off by more than like 0.25% just because like the gap isn't that big. You know what I mean? There isn't a lot of room to work with. So it'll be a contest pick, but this is another game. Like this might be the most interesting game of the whole week. I almost said year. It definitely isn't, but like you do want to see this rematch from the playoffs, Bengals and Kansas City. So we're gonna take Cincinnati. Well, I almost said it. I almost said the dreaded word. We're gonna take the Bengals. We're gonna take the 2.5 points, and it's purely gonna be a contest pick. And again, another game I just want to see as a fan. I don't have any ideas in terms of closing line value. But I do think it'll shape within the 2.5 zone on either side. It's hard for me to imagine though that like lines are gonna move against KC. Like there's got to be something for that. Like it's just hard at this point because if they're not considered the best team in the league, they're considered what 1B. Like it's between them and Buffalo, and I guess Philadelphia in terms of power rating by just about every metric. Philadelphia would be third, and I think San Fran would be fourth. So it's going to be hard to find sharp moves and sharp line movements against Kansas City. Just hard to get that kind of weight down. So we're going to be taking the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is hopefully going to be a fun affair.
In fact, Guy, next up, Sunday Night Football, Indianapolis Colts at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys minus 9.5 point favorites at home. 57% of early bettors are on the Cowboys. Fat Guy, who you got?
Another tough one. Like, what should this line be? Minus 8.5? Should it be minus 10.5? Is it just right? Like the Bears porridge at 9.5. So I don't have too many inklings as far as closing line value or in what area this market is going to shift. It's perhaps, I could look at the score next to me. It's 13-3 currently, nearing the end of the second quarter, where the Colts are trailing the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, we did pick Indy going into this, but that's, not with the idea that they were getting blown out. However, like I mentioned earlier, this is week 13, so getting blown out doesn't have the same weight it would in like week 2. Like it's not as reactive, the betting public and, the sharp public as well. So we're going to take Indy. This will be another contest pick. This one's not going to, I'm not as interested in the other ones, that's for sure, but it could go a couple other ways. I wonder what people's opinions are on Jeff Saturday as a coach so far, because I was, I thought there was a small percentage of a disaster, and it doesn't look to be that way. Like, his first week, they came off a convincing win, and maybe that's a good testament to delegation, because you can't know too much about the game plan if you had 5 days notice or something. So you kind of just have to trust your guys, and he didn't even hire them. But Frank Reich was a good coach before him. I don't think that firing was probably a good idea, but if he has built a good team and Jeff Saturday inherited a good team and he listens to him, like it's kind of like Mike Tomlin. It feels like that coaching style, perhaps. I don't have any intimate knowledge of it or anything, but like Mike Tomlin clearly hires good people with good ideas, and he lets them use those good ideas. And you can say, oh, the Steelers aren't very good. Mike Tomlin's won pretty much every year he's coached for, I don't know, 16, 17 years. It's like an impeccable Hall of Fame style coaching record. So don't trash that man. Anyways, what does Mike Tomlin have to do with this game? It's purely a contest pick. Maybe Jeff Saturday has something here. Colts plus 9.5.
And to add on to that, to me, it's kind of like the Dan Campbell thing where the expectations are like bottom of the barrel low. Like you really don't expect anything from Jeff Saturday. So any resemblance of positive movement forward is going to be, I think, treated
Magnified.
as a success. Oh, we've got a bit of an error, but we're just going to jump straight into the next game, which is going to be the New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 64% of bettors are on New Orleans, 36% on Tampa Bay as -4 favorites at home. Fat Guy, who you got?
We're gonna take New Orleans Saints, and I think there's a weird thing at play here. Is Dennis Allen, you have to consider that maybe playing Taysom Hill at quarterback is perhaps a higher chance of win probability. Especially they did this, was it last year? The same time last year, they shut out Tampa Bay on the road, and Taysom Hill played I believe, no turnover game, and that's kind of what you would need. So I'm betting on this, hoping that there is some sort of realization that we got shut out again. Not again, it's the first time. We got shut out. We had a very bad performance against the San Francisco 49ers. Maybe there's an idea that maybe we, or at least incorporate someone else behind center. Like maybe that'll give us a better chance of winning. And I really do think that that's the case. I'm not saying, Taysom Hill's going to start, but I think there's a chance. There's more so of a chance. There's no news coming out of the locker room, but I just don't understand how you couldn't at least entertain it at this stage in the season, being a relatively fresh coach of the team. So I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints because I think there's a chance that they get a switch at quarterback and the line could move in their favor if that does happen, because I do think it gives them a much better chance at winning. And also, too, 4 points doesn't seem so bad. That's a pretty good defense up in New Orleans. Not that I'm handicapping. I do think this game should be Tampa Bay -3 the way it's going, assuming they have some sort of competency at quarterback, which I believe is more easily achieved with Taysom Hill than Andy Dalton.
All right, Fat Guy, on to the lightning round. Buffalo at New England.
Buffalo Bills.
Tennessee at Philly.
Tennessee Titans.
Green Bay at Chicago.
Green Bay Packers.
Jacksonville at Detroit.
Detroit Lions.
Cleveland Browns at the Houston Texans.
Laying a touchdown with the Browns on the road.
Jets Vikings.
Jets +3.
Steelers Falcons.
Falcons.
Broncos Ravens.
Oh, we switched that one. We like the Denver Broncos. Disregard.
Washington at the New York Giants.
The New York Giants.
Miami at San Fran.
Miami Dolphins.
Seattle at the LA Rams.
Laying 8 on the road against the LA Rams, the Seattle Seahawks.
Chargers at Las Vegas.
Las Vegas Raiders. Should be a fun game.
Kansas City at Cincinnati.
Even more fun potentially with the Cincinnati Bengals +2.5.
Indy at Dallas.
Indy +9.5.
And then New Orleans at Tampa Bay.
Hopefully entertaining a change with New Orleans at 4.
Congratulations to the Week 12 picks against the spread winner, High Roller, who is 11-4, and that doesn't include the Monday night game. It could be 12-4 once that game is over. But congratulations, High Roller, as well as Jameson, Untouchable J, aka Jive Turkey, and Smokehouse Bacon Cheeseburger.
Had one of those
all
last night.
for being positive against the spread. Fat Guy. We also have CEO Eric Hayden continuing his very, very strong picks against the spread for the 22-23 NFL season. 103 wins, good for 59.5%. It'll be very interesting to see if he can beat that 60% mark for the season. On to the JS715 Name of the Week honorable mentions.
That guy gets the red meat. Pig Rye eats the lean breast meat. Simple analysis. Probably true. I probably eat too much red meat. I just bought half a cow. I don't know how I'm going to fit it in my freezer. I'm going to have to figure something out. Why is fat guy smell like a skunk at Thanksgiving? Well, you should see the streaks in my loins. Suck my 40-inch ditka. Oh. Okay. 1 week am top 10 and 1 week am bottom 20. Who knows? Poke Highs running back. I don't know who James Poke Highs. I'm assuming it's James President, former president, and dearly departed James Poke. Big Rye, the closing line tangent guy. That's pretty good. Dan Campbell eats kneecaps for Thanksgiving. He must. He said he did. Rye needs to start zapping fat guy with a cattle prod when his jargon goes on too long. You were right. It's a fair criticism.
This is the JS715 Name of the Week. Whoa, kaboom!
Fat Guy likes parlays now. I hate parlays with the sports book. However, if you were able to get a sheet that has outdated information, it is possible to win. I mean, I may not have lived it, but it is possible.
Thank you to our channel members. Remember, $5 a month. You can join the Discord, hang out with us, ask us any betting type questions that you have. So appreciate it for everyone that is a member. $5 a month to join down below. Fat Guy, make your picks against the spread for week 13 at BigRyanTheFatGuy.com. And that's it for the week 13 picks against the spread. Maybe not like a ton of betting opportunity this week, but there is a lot of entertaining games to watch. We're starting to hit that point where it's like it's hard to find that value.
That's our opinion. You're gonna have to bet look-aheads. It's like I said this earlier, but like, man, NFL is unforgiving. And like I said, perhaps if you found a place that has stale lines, you might be very successful against them.
Thank you for watching, and good luck for your picks in week 13.